China, 1967. The Cultural Revolution is tearing the country apart. Universities have become battlegrounds. The Red Guards, young, fanatical, dangerous, are dragging professors onto public stages and forcing them to confess crimes they never committed. The crowd cheers. The beatings are real. The Wenjie, a young astrophysicist, watches her father, a brilliant physics professor, beaten to death on the Tsinghua University exercise grounds. His own students are among those who beat him. He refuses to repent till the very end. That day, something inside the Wenjie goes permanently cold. She doesn't rage. She doesn't cry out. She simply stops believing that humanity is worth saving. The Wenjie survives the revolution, but not freely, labeled a political suspect. She is exiled to a remote classified military base, hidden in the mountains of northeastern China, Red Coast Base. Officially, it's a weapon. A colossal antenna dish designed to fry enemy satellites with focused microwave energy. But the slowly earning trust through her technical brilliance realizes the base is also something else, an enormously powerful radio transmitter. And with the right adjustment, it could aim a signal through the sun, amplifying it across the entire galaxy. She says nothing. She waits. She prepares. One quiet morning, while the duty operators doze at their posts, they adjust the frequency, rotates the great dish toward the rising sun, and presses the transmit button. 3 seconds. Then she stops. The message she sent was not a greeting. It was an invitation and a betrayal. Come here. I will help you conquer this world. Our civilization is no longer capable of solving its own problems. We need your force to intervene. She walked outside, collapsed on the grass, and lost consciousness. She had just changed the fate of every human being alive. 8 years pass. Then, late one night, the monitoring system catches something. Not noise, not a pulsar. A structured, deliberate signal aimed directly at Earth. That decodes it alone. For the first time in history, a human being reads words written by something not human. The message was repeated 3 times, with rising urgency. Do not answer. Do not answer. Do not answer. A longer message followed. It explained everything. An alien, a pacifist, risking its own life to warn a stranger, had intercepted Ye's signal. It told her, stay silent, and no one can find you. But reply, and your planet will be located instantly. Your world will be conquered. They'll read it carefully, and replied anyway. She knew exactly what she was doing. To her, humanity, a species capable of what she witnessed in 1967, deserved whatever was coming. Perhaps only an outside force could fix what humanity kept breaking. To understand what the Ed invited, you need to understand where the aliens came from. The Trisolarans lived on a planet orbiting not one star, but 3, and the 3 suns pulled at each other in chaotic, unpredictable paths that no mathematics could fully solve. This is the 3-body problem, a real physics concept where 3 gravitationally linked objects fall into patterns too complex to predict. The result for the Trisolaran planet was brutal. Sometimes all 3 suns drifted far away, the planet froze solid. Sometimes they aligned overhead, the ground scorched to ash. Rarely a stable era arrived, a brief, beautiful window when the suns behaved and life was possible. During each stable era, civilization would bloom desperately fast. Cities, science, culture, built with the urgency of people who knew it couldn't last. When it ended, survivors would biologically dehydrate, essentially mummify themselves and wait out the chaos. This had happened hundreds of times. Hundreds of civilizations built and destroyed over and over by their own unpredictable sky. They had spent their entire existence trying to solve the 3-body problem and escape their doomed star system. When Ye's signal arrived, they already knew about Earth, a paradise with a single, gentle, predictable sun. They began preparing their fleet immediately. Decades later, in the modern day, a nanomaterials researcher named Wang Miao is pulled into a strange military briefing. The message is simple and disturbing. The world's greatest scientists, physicists, cosmologists, mathematicians are killing themselves. Dozens of them. Their notes don't read like cries for help. They read like quiet, final conclusions, as if each person had learned something so fundamental and terrible that continuing felt pointless. Wang begins investigating. He's soon drawn into a secret virtual reality game circulating among scientists, called simply 3-Body. Inside the game, players experience the Trisolaran world firsthand, the chaotic skies, the civilizations burning and freezing, the desperate attempts to solve the unsolvable. It's hauntingly beautiful. It's also a trap. The game is a recruitment tool. Players who reach the deeper levels, and who show a willingness to believe humanity is beyond saving, are quietly approached and invited to join a real organization. The Earth Trisolaran organization, ETO, is made up of human beings who have decided deliberately to help the alien invaders. They're not all monsters. They're professors, engineers, activists, people who looked at humanity's wars, its self-destruction, its poisoned oceans and burning forests, and concluded, we are the problem. The Trisolarans, to them, represent a correction the species has earned. Working in secret, embedded across the world's institutions, they pass information and protect Trisolaran interests on Earth. They wait for the fleet to arrive. But the Trisolarans aren't just waiting, they're working. Their fleet is already in motion, but at interstellar speeds, the journey to Earth takes approximately 400 years. In that time, humanity could potentially develop technology advanced enough to threaten them. So the Trisolarans sent something ahead, something that needed no ship and no life support. They sent 2 protons. Using physics that humanity cannot yet comprehend, they unfolded these subatomic particles into higher dimensions, etched them with supercomputer-level processing circuits, and folded them back down. The result? Sophons proton-sized supercomputers that travel at near light speed and arrive on Earth invisibly. The Sophons can watch everything, no room is private, no document is secret, intercept any communication they choose. Sabotage particle accelerators, the machines humans use to study the fundamental laws of physics by interfering with experiments. Producing false and contradictory results, this last ability is the most devastating. Human scientific progress depends on physics, and physics has been quietly locked. Every experiment at the frontier of knowledge is now contaminated. Results don't make sense. Same experiment run twice gives different answers. The greatest scientists figured this out first. They realized humanity's technological ceiling had been sealed permanently, invisibly from the outside. The gap between human and Trisolaran technology would never close. That's why they killed themselves. By the end, the picture is complete, and it is terrifying. The Trisolarans are coming. Their fleet will arrive in roughly 400 years. Not tomorrow. Not in our lifetime. But coming, certainly and unstoppably. Because a wounded woman pressed a button on a mountainside decades ago and told them, "Come in, the door is open," and they are already watching. The Sophons see everything. Every military meeting, every whispered plan, every secret weapon being developed, observed, reported, countered before it can matter. Humanity is not preparing for a war it can fight. It's preparing for a war it can't hide. At the edge of all this stands the Wenjie, now old, sitting with Wang Miao as he finally asks her the questions she has been waiting for. She does not apologize. She does not regret. In 1967, she looked at the human race and found it guilty. She still does. Whether she was right is a question the universe isn't finished answering. The stars look the same as they always have. Cold, ancient, indifferent. But somewhere among them, an alien fleet is sailing toward Earth on a journey that began the moment a grieving daughter stopped believing in her own species. The first story ends here. The second, The Dark Forest, begins with a simple, brutal question. How do you fight a war when the enemy can hear every plan you make? The universe is not a fairy tale, the Wenjie. Where the first story ended, this one begins with a terrifying reality. The Trisolarans are coming. Their fleet won't arrive for 400 years, but they're invisible spies. The Sophons are already here, watching everything. Every military meeting, every classified document, every whispered plan. Earth has no secrets. This creates a problem that no army in history has ever faced. How do you prepare for a war when the enemy can see every move you make the instant you make it? The world's governments and generals meet. They plan, they build warships, they strategize. And the Trisolarans, for light years away, read every word of every plan as fast as humans can write it. Every strategy is dead before it begins. Then someone has an idea, perhaps the strangest military strategy in human history. The idea is simple, almost absurd. The Sophons can read anything written, spoken, or transmitted. But there is one place they cannot reach, inside a human mind. Thoughts are not visible. A person's inner world is the only truly private space left on Earth. So humanity creates the Wallfacer Project. For individuals are chosen and granted almost unlimited power, the authority to command resources, redirect armies, and spend entire national budgets without explanation to anyone. Their true strategies must never be spoken aloud, never written down, never communicated. The plans live only inside their skulls. Everything these four people say and do publicly will be deliberate misdirection, a maze of lies designed to confuse the Trisolarans. Their real plan is the one hidden beneath the performance. The UN announces the four Wallfacers in a public ceremony. Frederick Tyler, former U.S. Secretary of Defense. Cold, brilliant, a man who has spent a lifetime thinking about war. Manuel Rey Diaz, former president of Venezuela, a guerrilla warfare genius who defeated a U.S. military invasion using mass-produced $3,000 cruise missiles. Stubborn, proud, dangerous. Bill Hines, a neuroscientist turned politician who discovered that human thought operates at the quantum level. He understands the mind better than anyone alive. And the fourth name, the one that shocks everyone in the room, Luo Ji, a sociologist and amateur astronomer. A man who drifts through life, changes careers on a whim, and has contributed nothing of particular significance to anything. Luo Ji is as confused as everyone else. He tries to refuse. They tell him he cannot. He's a Wallfacer whether he wants to be or not. The Trisolarans are not idle. They know about the Wallfacer Project. They can't read the Wallfacers' minds, but they can study their behavior obsessively, searching for patterns that might reveal the hidden strategy underneath. They appoint one dedicated human agent, a wall breaker for each Wallfacer, tasked with one mission: figure out the real plan and expose it. Because once a Wallfacer's true plan is revealed, the strategy is dead. The years pass, decades pass. The three serious Wallfacers work on their plans with the full weight of national armies and trillion-dollar budgets behind them. Their public actions make no apparent sense, which is exactly the point. But one by one, the wall breakers close in. Tyler's plan, when his wall breaker finally cracks it, turns out to be deeply dark, a strategy built on manipulating humanity's own fear and psychology. When the wall breaker confronts him privately with the full analysis, Tyler doesn't deny it. Something in him breaks. He walks to a lake and drowns himself. Brilliant strategic mind, destroyed by the weight of his own secret. Rey Diaz builds towards something catastrophic, a plan involving nuclear warheads and the sun itself as a weapon. He is bold and unafraid. But when the logic of his plan is finally cracked and exposed to the world, humanity recoils in horror. His own people turn on him, is stripped of his power. Hines uses his mastery of neuroscience to secretly develop a technology that can alter the human brain, engineering a species that feels no fear. The idea is to transform all of humanity into soldiers who cannot be psychologically broken. When his wallbreaker reveals it, the plan collapses under the weight of ethical outrage. 3 Wallfacers, 3 plans. All 3 dismantled. That leaves only Luo Ji, the one nobody took seriously, the one who spent the first decade of his Wallfacer years in a beautiful mountain retreat, living quietly with the woman he loved, apparently doing nothing at all. Parallel to all of this, a military officer named Zhang Behai has been making his own quiet preparations. Zhang Behai is a political commissar in what will become Earth's Space Force. He is disciplined, respected, and secretly certain of one thing: humanity will lose. Not might lose, will lose. He has done the calculations, examined the gap between Trisolaran and human technology, and concluded that no strategy, no weapon, no Wallfacer plan can save Earth from the invasion. But the species can survive, even if the planet doesn't. A ship carrying humans could escape into the deep cosmos, beyond the reach of the Trisolaran fleet, and carry on somewhere else in the universe. Zhang Behai spends years subtly, carefully, and with absolute deniability working to ensure that one specific warship, the Natural Selection, will be the most advanced, most capable ship in the fleet when it is built. Eliminates people who might obstruct this. He arranges outcomes. He makes himself indispensable to those in power, and he puts himself into hibernation, sleeps for 200 years, wakes up in the future, and puts his plan into action. He seizes control of natural selection and flees. He is, from one angle, a traitor to humanity. From another, he is the only person honest enough to act on what he believed. The debate never quite resolves. 2 centuries into the future, Earth has built a massive space fleet, over 2,000 warships. The greatest armada in human history, bristling with nuclear weapons, assembled in orbit with a collective firepower capable of destroying small moons. Humanity feels for the first time genuinely ready. Then the Trisolarans send a message. We are dispatching an envoy. A single probe arrives, small, teardrop-shaped, the size of a large car, made of a material that is at any level of magnification, including 10 million times a perfect absolute mirror. No roughness, no scratches, no molecular imperfections. Its surface is stronger than anything in the solar system. Scientists hammer it with a rock pick. Nothing. They calculate. It is held together not by chemical bonds, but by the strong nuclear force, the same force that holds atomic nuclei together. This object should not exist at normal scale. It is beautiful and terrible. A tear of perfect light. Then it moves. The fleet celebrates having captured it. The droplet tears free of the mechanical arm holding it, generates a propulsion halo of unimaginable temperature, and accelerates directly toward the human fleet. It passes through warships the way a bullet passes through smoke. Not an explosion, a penetration. Clean holes appear in the hulls of massive warships. The ships glow red-hot from the heat of the impact and then detonate in thermonuclear fireballs as their fuel ignites. The droplet doesn't slow down, doesn't stop. It cuts straight through the entire first row of 100 ships. Turns, cuts through the next row, turns again. One probe, one teardrop, 2,000 warships. In a matter of hours, the entire fleet, humanity's ultimate defense. 200 years in the making, is a river of cooling metallic magma drifting in space. Earth's armies are gone. The fleet that fled with Zhang Behai, Natural Selection, survives only because it had already run. Luo Ji has been largely forgotten in all of this. The world stripped him of his Wallfacer authority years ago, when he seemed useless. He's been living as an exile, a nobody. But in the wreckage of the fleet's destruction, with Earth left defenseless and the Trisolaran fleet 200 years away, Luo Ji finally explains what he has actually been doing all along. Years ago, an old woman, the Wenjie, before she died, gave him a gift. 2 axioms. 2 seeds of an idea that she said she had never told anyone. First, survival is the primary need of every civilization. Second, civilizations continuously grow and expand, but the total matter in the universe stays constant. She told him to think about what follows from those 2 facts when applied to the billions of civilizations that must exist across the galaxy. Luo Ji thought about it for years, and he arrived at the answer that explained everything: why SETI had never detected alien signals, why the universe was so impossibly silent despite containing hundreds of billions of stars, why the Trisolarans had reacted to the Wenjie's signal with immediate plans for invasion rather than curiosity or caution. He explained it to his old friend, Detective Shikong, sitting in the dark. The universe is a dark forest. Every civilization is an armed hunter, moving silently through the trees, barely breathing. The hunter has to be careful because everywhere in the forest are other hunters just like him. If he finds another life, it doesn't matter if it's a demon or an angel, a child or an old man, there's only one thing he can do: eliminate it. Because he cannot know the other's intentions. He cannot know if they are friendly or hostile. He cannot know if they are weaker now, but will grow stronger. And in a universe of limited resources, any civilization that grows strong enough becomes a threat. The only safe move is to kill first, silently, and move on. This is why the universe is silent. Every civilization that ever revealed itself was destroyed. Every fire lit in the forest was extinguished. The universe is not empty. It is full of hunters, hiding in the dark, guns raised, fingers on triggers. Shikong stares into the night and says, "That's really dark." The real universe, Luo Ji replies, is just that black. And then, but in this dark forest, there's a stupid child called humanity who built a bonfire and is standing next to it, shouting, "Here I am, here I am." Or say, "Where is everybody? Where is everybody?" Here's what Luo Ji actually did during all those wasted years. He identified a star in deep space, a distant, unremarkable star called 187J3X1, and using Red Coast Base's old method, transmitted the star's precise coordinates out into the galaxy. Not Earth's coordinates, not Trisolaran's. Just this one random star's location. And he waited. 8 years later, the star was gone. Something in the dark forest had heard the broadcast, identified the location as containing a living civilization, and destroyed it. Silently, without announcement, without warning. A star annihilated, as casually as swatting a fly. Now Luo Ji makes his move. With a specially designed transmission system, he aims at the sun, just as the Wenjie did decades ago, and announces the following. He has prepared a broadcast. Encoded within it are the exact coordinates of Trisolaris and, inseparably, the solar system. If this broadcast is ever sent, hunters in the dark forest will come for both civilizations, mutual assured destruction on a cosmic scale. His finger is on the trigger. If the Trisolaran fleet does not stop, if humanity is harmed, if he is harmed, the transmission fires automatically. The Trisolaran fleet halts. For the first time since the Wenjie pressed a button on a cold mountainside, humanity has leverage. Luo Ji, the man no one took seriously, the drifter, the sociologist who never amounted to much, becomes the Swordholder. The one person on Earth whose continued existence is the only thing standing between humanity and annihilation. As long as he lives, finger on the trigger, the Trisolarans cannot move. But here is where the story cuts deepest. Once the immediate crisis passes, and the Trisolarans and humanity begin tentative negotiations, people start to think about what the deterrence actually means. Trigger broadcasts both locations. Pulling it destroys Earth too. Luo Ji is essentially holding a gun to humanity's own head and calling it protection. And so humans being humans, they try to take the gun away. Politicians argue the deterrence is too dangerous. Peace factions say negotiation is possible without the threat. The UN debates stripping Luo Ji of his swordholder status. There are real plans to force him to stand down. Luo Ji, when he realizes what they are doing, walks alone to a cemetery where the Wenjie and her daughter Yangdong are buried. He kneels in the winter cold. He thinks about everything, about the Wenjie's choice, about what humanity is, about whether any of this was worth it. And then he makes one final decision. He reactivates the transmission system. He aims it at the sun, puts his finger on the trigger, not as a threat to Trisolaris, but as a message to his own civilization. I will not be disarmed. The standoff holds. The negotiations continue. The Trisolarans, in the end, agreed to share technology, including the plans for a gravitational wave transmitter, a device that will permanently give humanity the ability to broadcast to the entire galaxy, a deterrent system that no single person needs to maintain alone. 5 years later, Luo walks with his wife and young daughter beneath the enormous gravitational wave antenna in northern China, a smooth, mirrored cylinder, 1.5 kilometers long, suspended above the ground, perpetually generating clouds from the moisture it pulls from the air. The dark forest still exists. The hunters are still out there. But for the first time, humanity is armed with a flashlight of its own, and the knowledge that sometimes the most powerful weapon is the willingness to use it. The second story ends here. The third death's end begins with the question, what happens when the deterrence finally breaks? The universe is a dark forest. Every civilization is an armed hunter stalking through the trees. Luo Ji. Before the war, before the deterrence, before all of it, there was a small, quiet act of love. Yun Tianming was a young man dying of lung cancer in a hospital bed. He had lived an unremarkable life, except for one thing. He was quietly, completely in love with a woman named Cheng Xin, Asian female, a brilliant aerospace engineer he had known since university. He never told her, but they were barely more than acquaintances. Then, while watching the news from his hospital room, he saw it. The UN had passed a resolution allowing individuals to purchase the naming rights to stars. It was an absurd product of the early Trisolaran crisis, a government cash grab dressed up as a grand gesture. Most people laughed at it. Yun Tianming spent every yuan of his savings on it. He registered the star in Cheng Xin's name. It was a dim, distant red dwarf. Nothing special, no planets, invisible to the naked eye without a map. But it was real, it existed, and it was hers, he thought. Cheng Xin can see the star. It's good. A few weeks later, he was chosen for something stranger than death. The Planetary Intelligence Agency had a problem. Their best hope for gathering intelligence on the incoming Trisolaran fleet was to send a probe that could intercept them in the Oort cloud hundreds of years from now at a speed no human technology could currently achieve. Wade, the cold and ruthless PA director, had a solution: the staircase program, a nuclear pulse sail that could push a small payload to 1% the speed of light. It could reach the Trisolaran fleet within a few centuries. The problem: a payload small enough to accelerate that fast couldn't carry a living person, or any complex life support system. It couldn't carry a full human body. It could, however, carry a human brain, a living, preserved brain, potentially recoverable if the Trisolarans captured it. Yun Tianming, already dying, volunteered. He would give humanity his mind as a weapon. The surgery removed his brain, which was placed in a cryogenic container and launched into the void. The probe drifted off course near Jupiter. Earth lost contact with it, was assumed lost. It wasn't a Trisolaran ship intercepted it decades later. Yun Tianming was now aboard the Trisolaran fleet. His brain, implanted into a cloned body, had been recovered by the very civilization humanity feared. Whether he was prisoner, guest, or something stranger was unknown for almost 2 centuries. But he remembered Cheng Xin. He had not forgotten. Cheng Xin was not an ordinary person, even if she never believed it. She had worked on the staircase program quietly, carefully, ensuring that Yun Tianming's brain made it into space. She had sent him there. The weight of that never quite left her. She used hibernation technology to sleep through the worst periods of the crisis era, waking into futures increasingly unlike the world she had known. Each time she opened her eyes, decades had passed, and the human race had changed. Technologically, culturally, morally. Each time, she found herself at the center of something enormous. By the Deterrence Era, the period when Luo Ji's gravitational wave threat had successfully kept the Trisolaran fleet at bay, humanity had entered an age of strange, uneasy prosperity. Trisolaran knowledge, exchanged as part of the truce, had accelerated human science dramatically. Earth had grown almost magical in its comfort and beauty. People had also grown soft. The dark forest deterrence was working perfectly. Trisolaran fleet sat frozen for light years away. It was unable to advance without triggering the galaxy-wide broadcast that would destroy them both. Luo Ji, now over 100 years old, had spent 54 years alone in an underground bunker, the red switch in his hand, the greatest burden in human history, resting on one person's will. Humanity decided it was time for a change. The UN voted overwhelmingly to replace Luo Ji as the Swordholder. The reason was not strategic, it was emotional. Luo Ji was old, strange, unsettling, a living relic of a harder age. And there was someone better, someone the world loved. Cheng Xin was brilliant, kind, warm. She had dedicated her life to humanity. She had sacrificed and suffered. She was, the polls consistently showed, the most trusted person on Earth. She received nearly twice as many votes as the next candidate. The handover ceremony was held 45 kilometers underground, in a bunker so deep it sat inside the Earth's mantle. Luo Ji had designed the interior himself, requesting only that it be as simple as a tomb. Luo Ji handed Cheng Xin the switch with both hands. She accepted it with both hands. He looked at her for a moment with eyes she could not read. The eyes of a man who had spent 54 years staring at an invisible enemy across 4 light years alone. Then he turned and walked away with strong, steady steps. In the lobby, prosecutors were waiting to arrest him from underside, threatening to destroy the world. He didn't even look at them. Humanity did not thank Luo Ji. They had already decided he was a monster. Cheng Xin looked at the red switch. It felt warm, still holding the temperature from Luo Ji's hand, his 54 years of vigilance. She had been Swordholder for approximately 15 minutes when the wall turned blood red. The screen showed the same message, repeating, each update more terrible than the last. Incoming strong interaction space probes detected, total number 6. Speed, 25,000 kilometers per second. Estimated arrival time at the surface, 10 minutes. 6 droplets, the same indestructible teardrop probes that had annihilated humanity's fleet in minutes, had been hiding just outside the advance warning zone. The moment Cheng Xin had accepted the switch from Luo Ji, they had accelerated at maximum power toward Earth. The Trisolarans hadn't wasted a single second. The countdown began. 9 minutes. Cheng Xin gripped the switch. Pressing it would broadcast the coordinates of Trisolaris to the galaxy, mutual assured destruction. The Trisolaran fleet would be annihilated. Earth would be annihilated. Both civilizations wiped out by hunters in the dark forest because she had pulled the trigger. 7 minutes. She understood suddenly why she had been chosen. Not because she was strong, because she was kind. Because everyone knew she would not do it. The Trisolarans had read this in her, read humanity's choice of her, and acted immediately. 5 minutes. 4 billion years of evolution pressed down on her. 3.5 billion years of life crawling from the ocean, standing upright, building fire, language cities. Art, all of it stacked on top of her in that underground chamber, all of it asking her not to end it. 2 minutes. She imagined a baby, soft and warm, smiling, calling out to her. No, she screamed and threw the switch away. She watched it slide across the floor. She didn't reach for it. The droplets hit the gravitational wave transmitters first. North America, Europe, Asia, one after another. The antennas were destroyed. The system that backed up the deterrence was gone. The deterrence center shook from the nearby impact. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then the screen showed its final message. Gravitational wave universal broadcast system cannot be recovered. Dark forest deterrence has been terminated. Cheng Xin rode the elevator back to the surface. The handover ceremony had been 1 hour ago. The flag still stood in the plaza. The world was still there, for now. But the war had begun. The Trisolaran fleet did not arrive immediately. It was still centuries away. But with the deterrence destroyed, there was nothing to stop it. The Trisolarans were unexpectedly reasonable. They announced their terms through the Sophon on Earth. Humanity would be relocated to Australia and 1/3 of Mars. The rest of the planet would be prepared for Trisolaran settlement. 8 billion people crammed into a single continent, stripped of most technology, surrounded by invisible alien surveillance. The world that had enjoyed half a century of Trisolaran enhanced prosperity was now a reservation. Cheng Xin and her friend AA, a sharp, practical young woman who had attached herself to Cheng Xin with fierce loyalty, went to Australia with the earliest wave of migrants. The question of whether Cheng Xin had made the right choice consumed the world. The debate was vicious. Some said she had saved humanity by not triggering mutual annihilation. At least people were alive. Others said she had doomed them to a slow extinction on a reservation continent, when one press of a button might have preserved everything. She carried it all. It didn't defend herself, and then a light in the darkness. A message broadcast to Earth from somewhere in deep space. It was from Yun Tianming. Yun Tianming was alive. He had integrated into Trisolaran society, somehow impossibly. A human brain in an alien fleet, and he had used his one chance to send something to Cheng Xin. Not coordinates, not intelligence, not a plea. He sent her 3 fairy tales. Simple stories, seemingly innocent. A painter at a royal court, a sea creature who could eat anything. Prince who traveled deep underwater. Charming, strange, dreamlike. Because the Sophons monitored everything, Yun Tianming could not send information directly. The fairy tales were a code layered with metaphors and symbols that, if decoded, might contain clues for humanity's survival. Humanity's best minds spent years trying to crack them. They found hints, references to curvature propulsion, a way of traveling at near light speed by bending space. References to the painting something about dimensions, about a flat world, references to paths of escape. But the most crucial message was hidden so deeply, so simply, that almost everyone missed it entirely. The painting. In one story, a magician's trick revealed a needle's eye. A flat image that looked at from the side was only a sliver. A 2D image in a 3D world. It was trying to warn them about what was coming for the solar system. Two warships, Bronze Age and Blue Space, had fled the Doomsday Battle years earlier and were drifting in deep space. Running low on supplies, cut off from Earth, Bronze Age made a decision that no court or historian would ever fully untangle. It attacked Blue Space to steal its resources. The captain framed it as survival. Others called it murder. The crew of Bronze Age killed other humans to continue existing. Blue Space survived and fought back, eventually escaping into a region of anomalous space, a four-dimensional fragment, a pocket of the universe where the geometry had 4 spatial dimensions instead of 3. Inside, the crew experienced reality from a perspective humans had never known. They could see inside sealed containers, around corners, through solid walls. The universe, seen from 4 dimensions, was staggering in its openness. They discovered something inside the fragment, a message left by an ancient civilization, a warning. And evidence that the Dark Forest hunters did not merely use energy weapons or kinetic strikes. They had something worse. When Bronze Age returned to Earth after the Great Resettlement and was put on trial for the massacre, its captain testified quietly. The court found the crew guilty. The debate over whether survival justified murder had no clean answer. It never does. But Blue Space's discoveries in the 4-dimensional fragment were already changing everything humanity thought it understood about how the Dark Forest worked. The solar system was struck not by a weapon humanity could see coming, but by a dimension reduction strike. Someone unknown, unseen, operating in the true silence of the Dark Forest had launched a 2-dimensional foil at the solar system. A thin slice of space with only length and width and no depth. When it made contact, 3-dimensional space fell into it, the way a waterfall falls off a cliff. The laws of physics bent. Matter collapsed flat. The scientist aboard one of the last ships in the solar system calculated the only possible escape velocity: light speed. Nothing else was fast enough to outrun the collapse. Not the fastest human ships, not anything. One by one, the planets began to flatten. Neptune, Saturn, Jupiter, each one pressing into a vast, intricate painting. Every internal structure, every mountain and ocean and person, unfolded into 2 dimensions with perfect, horrifying precision. The most complex image ever produced. Portrait of everything rendered in 0 thickness. The sun went flat. Its light changed, became the light of a 2D star. The solar system, every rock, every satellite, 4 billion years of Earth's history, every city and forest and ocean became a painting. A painting with no thickness. Humanity, for the first time, understood the message in Yun Tianming's fairy tales. The needle-eye image. The flat picture. He had been trying to warn them, they had not understood in time. Weakness and ignorance are not barriers to survival, but arrogance is. Before the solar system died, Cheng Xin and AA managed to escape on a small ship called Halo. Reaching a planet in a distant star system, the star Yun Tianming had bought for Cheng Xin. All those years ago, from his hospital bed, on the surface of that planet, they found a door, a rectangular frame of glowing light, standing alone. When they stepped through it, they entered somewhere else entirely. Universe 647, a private pocket universe, roughly 1 cubic kilometer in size, with its own sky, its own sun, its own fields of green wheat and a babbling brook. Complete, alive, a world built from scratch. Sophons, a digital consciousness the Trisolarans had created in the form of a graceful woman in a kimono, was waiting for them. "This universe is a gift," she said. "Mr. Yun Tianming gave it to you. From across the centuries, across his captivity, across the dying solar system, Yun Tianming had found a way to keep his promise. He had once given Cheng Xin a star. Now he had given her a universe to hide in, while the great universe outside burned and collapsed. Inside Universe 647, time moved differently. Years passed peacefully. Cheng Xin and the astrophysicist Guan Yifan, the only other survivor who had made it through the door, lived quietly. Farmed the small fields, studied Trisolaran knowledge, and watched time pass in the great universe at hundreds of millions of years per day. Then Guan Yifan discovered something terrible. The Trisolarans and many other civilizations had been building mini-universes to escape the eventual heat death of the cosmos. Each one extracted mass from the great universe. And the great universe's total mass had been precisely balanced, perfectly calculated, so that gravity would eventually win, pulling everything back together into a big crunch, after which a new Big Bang could give birth to a new universe. But all those mini-universes had stolen too much mass. The great universe was now too light. Instead of contracting, it would expand forever, growing colder and darker and emptier until every star burned out. Every galaxy drifted beyond sight of every other, and the universe died slowly, without end, in an eternal tomb of cold and darkness. The Returners, a cosmic movement that had outlasted civilizations, broadcast a message to every mini-universe in 100,000 languages. The total mass of our universe has decreased to below the critical threshold. The universe will expand forever and die. All lives and all memories will die. Please return the mass you have taken away and send only memories to the new universe. Cheng Xin read the message. She and Guan Yifan looked at each other. They already knew what they would do. They spent weeks returning every gram of mass in Universe 647 back through the door to the great universe. The soil, the metal floor tiles, the air, the water, piece by piece. The sun, a hollow metal sphere, was pushed through last. The mini-universe was stripped down to bare darkness. Before they left, Cheng Xin asked one question. Can we keep another 5 kilograms here? She was holding a transparent sphere, a sealed ecological system she had spent days building with Sophons. Inside, tiny fish, green algae, miniature continents of grass, a small glowing emitter for a sun. As long as the light worked, the system would sustain itself. She wanted to leave something alive behind, something that would still exist in the empty dark long after they were gone. Of course, said Guan Yifan. The great universe isn't going to fail to collapse, because it misses 5 kilograms. They boarded the small ship Yun Tianming had hidden beneath the floor. Sophons, no longer a graceful woman in a kimono but a lean warrior in camouflage, katana on her back, climbed in last. Don't worry, she told them. As long as I'm alive, no harm will come to you. They flew through the door, back into the great universe. In the empty, dark mini-universe behind them, Universe 647, the gift only 2 things remained. A metal box containing the complete memory of both the Earth and Trisolaran civilizations, encoded in quantum storage broadcasting on neutrinos into the void, waiting to be found by whatever came after the next Big Bang. And a small glass sphere, drifting weightless in the dark, with a tiny fish swimming between floating drops of water, and a drop of dew lifting off a blade of grass and catching the light of a miniature sun. Epilogue. The stairs of responsibility. All my life has been spent climbing a staircase made of responsibility. As a student, Cheng Xin's responsibility was to study. As an engineer, to build rockets. As a PAA aide, to send a probe and a man's brain into the stars. As a Swordholder, to hold the fate of 2 civilizations in one hand. As the last human from the solar system, to decide whether the universe itself would live or die. She never asked for any of it. She was not the chosen one. She was not a hero forged for this purpose. She was an ordinary person who happened to keep climbing. The ultimate fate of all intelligent beings has always been to become as grand as their thoughts. The solar system was a painting. Earth was gone. Trisolaran fleet was ancient history. Civilizations that had once terrified each other across the void had both been erased by something older and quieter than any weapon. But somewhere in the vast dark of the great universe, a tiny ship was flying with 3 passengers, 2 humans and a loyal machine, carrying the memory of everything that had ever mattered. And in an empty cubic-kilometer universe, a small fish was swimming through a floating bead of water, catching the light. The trilogy ends here. What began with a daughter watching her father die in a field in 1967 ends with a fish swimming in a sealed sphere. Drifting in the dark after the death of the solar system, the last light of a civilization that once looked up at the stars and hoped, we know that we existed, we lived. Cheng Xin.